there's a lot of things that go on today in our teens' lives. So I thought I'd open up before I introduce our first speakers with a little story. Okay? Athletes, parents, you ready? I'm going to take you back to the 90s, like the Super Bowl halftime show. Okay. I was playing soccer at Stevenson High School. Sorry. But I did go there back in the 90s, and we were in super sectionals for soccer. I was a junior on the team, and we were playing Barrington. Yep. And it was a really messy game. Really, really messy. Really physical. A couple of yellow cards here and there. All good. Game's going to go on. So there's 30 seconds left in the game. It's tied. Barrington won, Stevenson won. 20 seconds. We're still tied. 10 seconds, tied. So what does that mean? We're going to a shootout. So coach pulls us all together and says, all right, you, get out there. Make it count. Get it in the net. And I was one of them. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. I've worked on this. I've played soccer since I was 4. I can do it, I can do it. Barrington chose their 5 players. So they literally line you up. So you have Stevenson 5, you have the Barrington 5, and then you have the goalkeepers taking turns in the net, right? So Barrington goes first. Barrington scores. Stevenson scores. I'm gonna hold my fingers up like this because it helps me. Okay, Barrington goes, they miss. Stevenson goes, we miss. Okay? Barrington, the 3rd shot they make, 3rd shot we make. 4th shot, Barrington makes. 4th shot, Stevenson makes. Okay? 5th shot, Barrington makes. Guess who's the last one to shoot? Yeah. I was like, bless it. But 2 seniors are making me the junior, you know, like, great. No pressure, right? So I walk up to the line and I think, okay, I can do this. It's like practice. You know, you try to take yourself to that place. Like, just like you're at practice, you can do it. So I get up to the line, you know, you do your little wind up. I already know I'm going to that lower right-hand pocket. I'm going right there. That's I like to shoot there. So, and I've been watching the goalie and she's been going left. So, what do? Go up and it goes wide. It went wide. It went really wide. So I took a moment, probably grabbed my face. I said choice words I will not repeat. But what I remember the most is turning and seeing the crowd, my teammates, who I felt so bad, seniors. This was our time to go to state. And I just grabbed my face and just thought, oh my gosh, how is this happening, right? And then I look in the crowd and I see the emoji, what I like to call the yikes face. You know, the parents are all like that, and I thought, oh my God. So, but the one thing I want to say is it builds character, right? And back in the 90s, we didn't have these. So I didn't have to constantly go back and be like, yep, I shaped that ball. I didn't have to go back. I didn't have people making memes. I didn't have people texting me, messaging me. None of it. None of it. So I will tell you, was it a few weeks of 2 hard weeks? Sure, right? 2 hard weeks. You know, we got through, played another season, and we did well. And I'm still playing soccer today. Glory Mirabella. We still play. Anyways, so my question for you guys, how many of you, with the raise of hands, has had a moment like this? Whether it be in work, sport, right? We've all had that moment when we just broke down, and it's okay. So tonight I'm excited because Eric, who's going to join Audrey up here, they are professionals in working with athletes and students on performance. So Audrey, who's joining us, I just want to make sure I get this right. She's the licensed clinical social worker, and I know you're the CEO of Simply Be. And you guys, she's a former D1 volleyball player at Loyola. So she's had a lot of experience with this, and I'm going to let her share her story. And then we have Eric, who works together with Audrey, who's working with many local teams right now. One of them, he works with Deco's daughter's team, with Illinois juniors, my daughter Ruby's team, Wisconsin juniors, to work on our mental health with performing. And it's not just in sports, it carries through life. So, and Eric was also a collegiate athlete, baseball. right? Yes, baseball athlete. And he has, he's a professional counselor and has your master's degree specializing in sport and health psychology, correct? Yes. All right, you guys, so I'm going to welcome them up here. They're going to walk us through. They'll be good athletes. So thank you guys for being here.
Can everyone hear me with this?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for having me and being in Libertyville for the last 8-9 years now. I really appreciate being here and knowing that my kids who are in the back corner will be going to a really great high school, and they're at Rockland currently, and we live just down the street. So to be here is really important to me to continue to be in the communities that I live in, even the former communities that I used to live in, giving back to the community, especially with sports and mental health. My story is that I did not have mental health support when I needed it the most. I played for 2 years at Loyola Chicago and made the NCAA bracket tournament. It was all newcomer of the year, all conference, and we got to play Wisconsin in the first bracket of the NCAA. It was really exciting. And I chose Loyola because I had had compartment syndrome as a chronic injury, and I chose Loyola because with the coach in the recruiting process had said that I was at the level that I could start. And I chose my college career based on the ability to start immediately my freshman year, because my injury is an overuse injury, so days are kind of numbered. I didn't know how numbered they were, and after 2 years of playing, I went to see my surgeon for the second time, and he basically said, you're not going back into the gym, you're not able to do this and live a healthy, normal life. And despite him being very clear, I still didn't get the message until I went back to the gym that Monday, and the athletic director pulled me in and said, the scholarship has been covered by the NCAA, we have our 12th one back, we're going to give a walk-on 12th scholarship, we like you to fulfill the manager duties for the next 2 years. And that was just about the most support I got, was that one conversation. And this was in 2008. And since then, we've evolved a really long way in mental health, and I'm very happy to see that. However, it took me a couple of years to figure out what mental health support was, and I'm really grateful to say that that has been evolving. And since 2011, NCAA has made significant improvements for mental health, and it's trickled down to high schools and beyond. So I know that I'm in community now, despite 10, 15 years ago not really having that community and not making mental health a priority for athletes. So I do really appreciate this platform, and I don't take it for granted. I'm very grateful to be here. In my experience working with athletes, including the Northwestern women's volleyball team and JVC and many other sports clubs and high school teams, including Stevenson, what I've been noticing the most, especially during COVID, is the concern with uncertainty and how people are coping with uncertainty and how that's creating anxiety and panic in our athletes. So what I'd like to do today is really read a speech about uncertainty, what I see. I wanted this to be really thoughtful for you, and Eric is going to do the training that we often do with athletes, and I felt that the mixture of both would be really helpful to get a high-level idea about what uncertainty is in mental health in athletes, and then let Eric really kind of drive that message home in a training program that we have been delivering to local sports programs here for the last 2 years. The biggest obstacle athletes face is uncertainty. Tonight, we will talk about why that is and how to overcome it by using the growth and resiliency model, copyrighted by Cindy Lee. We experience uncertainty when we are faced with challenges that we do not know if we can overcome. The threat of not being able to achieve or succeed can cause us to put in less effort, even give up altogether. When we see challenges, it's common to feel uncertain and doubt our abilities. Uncertainty means to be unclear because a choice cannot be made due to psychologically shutting down. Every day, athletes are faced with choices, and more times than not, you initiate your reaction with some uncertainty. You ask yourself, do I really know how to do this? Or should I wake up and work out? Or do I really need to go to the gym tonight? Many times in our private thoughts, we may even say, I'm not sure if I even want this. And I'm here to tell you that that is normal. Not only is it normal, it is also what some of the most successful people in the world experience just like you. Billionaires doubt their skills, pro athletes question their passion, and high school athletes wonder if they're on the right path. So if everyone experiences various levels of uncertainty or ambiguity in their performance, then why do some persist in their goals to succeed, and why do others let ambiguity drive indecision and inaction? First, I want you to understand this. Every day, no matter who you are, you wake up feeling and thinking differently about yourself and your abilities than you did the day before. Your schema, which is the story you tell about yourself, and your identity, how you label yourself, isn't permanent. In fact, your schema and self-identity is fluid and changes based on your mood and many other fluctuating factors. Nonetheless, despite that being a universal experience, the mentally tough individual do not let their minds take a reactive state of mind, rather they take a responder's state of mind. And to help you do that tonight, Eric and I are going to be here, and we're going to teach you what that means to become aware of your thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and urges. We coin this as the Big Four. After becoming aware, we will train you on the importance of pausing and observing, how to respond to your thoughts and emotions by taking responsibility for them, and creating an action plan to act skillfully and finally build a growth mindset. These are the 5 steps in the growth resiliency model. The first step you must do in order to take responsibility for your mind is to become aware. Awareness is key to success, and it is something that every single person has the ability to do, no matter who you are. Awareness of your mental state is by far the most underrated talent that takes people from good to great. Tonight we will talk about the awareness of uncertainty and the role it has in your mindset as an athlete. Overcoming uncertainty improves confidence, creates resiliency, and protects you from anxiety, worry, and even panic. Contrary to uncertainty, you can induce a state of being overwhelmed, anxious, in an athlete, and that can lead to a state of disengagement and inaction. You've probably heard the Newton's first law: a body continues in its state of rest unless acted upon by a force. Meaning, the state of uncertainty or state of rest will remain that way until you put a force upon it. In sports psychology, we know this is true. The longer an athlete stays motionless in their mental response to uncertainty, the more likely they are to develop anxiety or panic. This is because athletes experience what we call cognitive dissonance. They believe themselves to be an aggressive athlete, yet their thoughts are doubting their ability and commitment. When this occurs, the most important step an athlete can take is action immediately towards what they believe to be true, not their automatic thoughts that just pop up. Tonight you will hear me say over and over again, thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and urges to act are automatic, situational, and often spontaneous. Just because they pop up doesn't mean that you should override what you believe to be true, because at your deepest core, you know you are a competitive athlete. The bottom line is the quicker you act, the less likely you become to step in doubt and uncertainty. You have probably heard Newton's second law: the acceleration of an object depends on the mass of the object and the amount of force applied. To put it in sports psychology terms, the skill that you use is only as good as the force behind it. This means that the skills you learn tonight are only as good as your intentions and effort you put behind it. This is really good news. If you consistently focus your attention on using skills when you are faced with uncertainty, then you will stay active in your mind and build the toughness required to face further challenges. Your brain is like a box, and you can only put so many things in a box until it's filled up and maxed out. What you put in your box is up to you. I suggest filling your box with the skills that help you respond to your Big Four. Remember, there is no need to waste time or energy trying to change your automatic reactions, but rather using skills to become aware of them and respond to them with confidence and self-certainty. In closing, I'd like to ask my question that I proposed to you a bit ago. That if everyone experiences various levels of uncertainty in their performance, then why do some persist in their goal to succeed, and why do others let their ambiguity drive indecision and inaction? I would propose that in the face of uncertainty, those who continue to put force on their mental skills grow in strength, toughness, and endurance. However, those who do not put force behind their mental skills fall in a state of rest and inaction. Thank you for having me tonight, and I'd like to pass it off to Eric.
Sorry, just can't be that static. Audrey, thank you for the message and introducing me. Again, brief introduction. My name is Eric Stevenson. I'm a licensed practicing counselor and certified mental performance coach at Simply Be Counseling, just down the road in Vernon Hills. There, I specialize working with athletes, mental performance, mental resilience, the topic we're talking about today, just mental health, from anxiety, depression, OCD, wide variety. Clearly seen in the So, with that being said, the resilient mind. In sports psychology, we hear mental resiliency, we hear mental toughness, we hear grit, we hear these comments all the time, these statements, and they're great. But when I ask my clients what do they mean, how do you get better at them, oftentimes there's crickets. Yeah, it's a good question. We know these things are so important, but yet we don't necessarily know how to spend the time to improve these things. And that's okay, because it's a tough concept. It's tough to conceptualize. There's a lot involved, and it's very different for each athlete. So by defining what a resilient mind is, right? By understanding what it means to be an athlete and then giving them actual practical skills to improve it, like puts them at ease. Oh, now I know actually how to do this, right? Because there are ways to do it. Right? So with the next 25, 30 minutes, my presentation is going to be exactly how do you get that ball rolling? How do you actually start building mental toughness, mental resiliency, where it's going to apply both in sports, outside of sports, and just in general as well. So the agenda for today is what is mental performance? Kind of the question asked at the beginning. It's even in our field, it's not defined that clearly. Right? If you ask a lot of professionals, it might be different to each one. What exactly is mental performance? So what we're going to do is hopefully kind of define it for you and give you a little insight into how we see mental performance when it applies to an athlete. Next one is, what does whole athlete mean? And yes, I have a master's degree in sports psychology and all that, but I look at the athlete outside of sport, right? If the athlete comes in and says, yes, I want to focus on your physical skills and your mental skills, but I also want to know who you are, what makes you unique, what's your favorite move, right? Tell me about your friends, etc. All of that is going to play a role not only with mental health, but also in your sports performance as well. The third step will be what are the 5 steps to growing a resilient mind? And those 5 steps will be something Audrey mentioned, kind of the growth and resiliency model. Today we're going to be mostly focusing on the first step of that to get you guys a little familiar with it. Then we're going to learn the 4 key elements of an aware athlete. And like Audrey said, I'm going to be saying it over and over again, just like she did, is becoming aware. Become aware of your thoughts, mostly negative. Become aware of your emotions, your physical sensations, and your urges. Now, some of you are running. Don't worry, I'm going to say it so many times, you'll be able to present this, right? I promise. Okay? And then the last one is exercise and practice. We want you to walk away with a skill today that you can, athletes and parents can apply this tomorrow and start actually working on developing a resilient mindset. So if we start off with what is mental performance, right? Well, the first piece is training the mind with skills. Right? We know mental performance is important, but we're only doing it if we're actually utilizing skills. Right? So the skills that I can provide, the skills that are in the model, right? You learn how to become better at mental performance by actually applying skills. The second one is controlling thoughts and emotions. Right? This is difficult. Right? Emotions and thoughts, especially negative ones, are powerful. Sometimes they lead to a lot of negative things. So not necessarily can we control these things? Probably not, right? To some extent. Can we control how we respond to them? Right? We were talking about it. Can you control how you respond instead of reacting? Right? We want to teach you how to get out of a reactive mindset or achieve a responsive mindset. And the fourth one is achieving a growth mindset to see challenges as opportunities. When you get to that place, that's when you really know that you're good at mental performance, when you have a really strong mindset. It's tough to get to, but by applying the skills, by kind of learning how to do it with practice and actually applying it, it's possible. And then the fifth one is applying experiences on the field and the court to both support the whole mind. So what the skills that I'm teaching, the skills that we're teaching tonight, the skills that we teach with our clients are not just so that we score more baskets, throw from yards. They're for life skills. They're going to be better students. They're going to be better in the workplace. They're going to be better in college. They're going to be better friends. It applies to all different categories. And that's why we use the same model when we teach athletes, and we use the same model when we teach the parents of those athletes as well. So the whole athlete, and what makes up the whole athlete, right? You know, we like I said before, I want to go beyond just them as an athlete. So we go beyond the game, right, to train the mental and emotional whole athlete system. So, you know, in this wellness village, if we call it, there's 8 different aspects that I like to talk about with the athlete when they come in. I said, okay, emotions. Tell me about your relationship with them. Do emotions get the best of you? Do they affect you? Can you control them? Can you not? Your body, right? Do you have any, you know, are you awareness of the sensations in the body? Can you recognize when you feel nerves? Can you recognize tension? Relationships. I want to know about the relationships with themselves, first off. That's number one. I want to know about the relationships with their parents, with their coaches, with their teammates, with any extra private lesson coaches that they might have. I know there's a lot of those. Just all the relationships in life. Because we might find something there that a parent might not be aware of that is very impactful to them. Financial. This is one often gets overlooked. Parents. Kids are very aware that they're spending a lot of money on their lessons, on their equipment, and that puts pressure on them. I can, you know, the amount of times I've heard, well, I know mom and dad spend so much money on these lessons, and I feel like if I blow it, then I blow it. It's a pretty powerful statement overall. Vocation, right? If they have a job, work, career, how does that impact their school, their life, and them as an athlete as well? Some athletes need to work, some don't, some choose to. Community, what's the relationship like with the community? How do they respond to the community? How are they accepted? Do they take part in it? And creativity. Oftentimes, sure, athletes love their sport, but I want to know, are you into music? Right? Do you do poetry? Do you do anything that's creative in a sense, right? I want to know all that makes that person unique. And then intellect, right? We're looking at kind of cognitive thinking skills, emotional intelligence, right? So all of these are nothing really about sports, but more or less about that person. So what is a healthy athletic identity? Identity is a very slippery slope. When an athlete ties their identity with who they are to their sport, you have to be very careful. I work with a lot of athletes who are very passionate. They tell me, oh, I just love this sport. This is all I care about. This is all I want to do. This is who I am. That's amazing, and I love that. But when they get too overlapped, right, they start to mirror each other and they connect, well, then it becomes very fragile, because if they fail as an athlete, they fail as a human, as a person. They take that home with them, and it's a whole array of mental health crises as well. So, you know, professional athletes are doing a lot of work right now trying to separate their identity from who they are. And they have to use all creative things, right? They're putting yellow tape outside the locker room to say, okay, when I walk across, I'm Matt the football player, but when I walk across this yellow tape, I'm Matt the husband, the father, brother, friend. Because if they take everything home with them constantly, there's no break. And it wears on them over years and years. And of course, there's a mental health crisis, not just with high school athletes, but I can give you a whole list of professional athletes that you would know that you would already know. So we want to, create this healthy identity with the athlete. What does that look like? Well, we want the athlete to be comfortable with calling themselves an athlete. We want others to see you as an athlete. You have an objective view of your ability. You don't engage in excessive judgment or bragging. You have a balance between sports, school, family, friends. And balance is key. Your emotional reactions are within reason. I've had some struggles with that before. You have non-athlete friends. When I first read this, I said non-athletic friends. I'm like, I have plenty of non-athletic friends. Your thoughts and feelings are controllable, and your behaviors and choices are in line with your value system. So here is an image of the growth and resiliency model. If you're part of the volleyball program, I'm sure you've seen this image many times. So here it is again. But this is the growth and resiliency model, right? And this is where our teachers, our all mostly based on. And it's a great model, it's a conceptual model, and it can be utilized, again, not just bettering athletes, but bettering their parents, bettering them as students. This can be used with firefighters, police. This can be used in many different settings. Right? So if you look here, the model is in a pyramid shape. Right? And at the bottom is become aware, because this is the foundation of change. This is the foundation of where we start, and this is what I'm going to be going into more detail with you tonight. Okay, how can we at least start this one, because we know it's true. Because if in psychology, if you want a behavior change or cognitive change, you have to first be aware of it. You have to first notice and mount those patterns that you fall into over and over and over again. Because once you become aware of it, then that gives us the opportunity to actually respond to it instead of react. So become aware of what? Well, again, the big four. Anybody want to guess what they are? Anybody know yet? Thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and urges. Right? A lot of these negative ones. Oftentimes athletes aren't aware that they have these negative thoughts, which lead to negative emotions, which lead to negative reactions, which lead to negative results, which lead to doubt, fear, failure, arguments with parents, coaches, etc. Right? It all starts with you need to become aware. The second part of the model is pause. Right? And pausing really is the space we want to put between the negative trigger that happens to us and how we respond and react. If we get an email at work that angers us, well, if we just grab the keyboard and fire one back, maybe it feels good, right? But we might have some regret with it. It might not be the best decision because we didn't think it out. We didn't give us enough time to pause, right? Athletes do this all the time. They make a mistake. There goes a piece of equipment, right? There's, comment to the referee, umpire. I think tossed a couple times in college. Sorry. Because I didn't pause. I wasn't aware that I was down on myself saying, I'm so bad at this. If I strike out, well, I'm going to quit. I go up there, I strike out, and it's the umpire's fault. Well, if I was aware that it was way deeper than the umpire's fault. If I was aware of that, then maybe I wouldn't maybe react the way I did. If I was able to actually take a pause. So once we have that pause, that gives us an amazing opportunity to actually respond. Right? This is the most important piece. To actually respond instead of react. So an athlete might tell me, man, I'm so nervous, I feel performance anxiety. Okay, right? That's right, and then that's it. If it just ends there, they're going to have a lot of self-critical, fearful thoughts, right? But if they go, I'm aware that I always feel like vomiting. They kind of take a moment, they pause and go, and I still can just breathe deeply, trust my skills, trust my training. If they just add that second piece into it, not only does the performance anxiety reduce a great deal, but the feeling of vomiting, and then their confidence going into the next competition as well. Right? And then we want to have an action plan and execute, able to kind of integrate it into other aspects of their life, not just sports, but more into their schoolwork, their relationship with their parents, etc. And hopefully by the end, be able to reflect, think, change, and improve, and ultimately grow, which is not just becomes who you are, you have a growth mindset. And you're able to think of things not as black and white, but instead you're able to think of things more with mental flexibility and start questioning the thoughts and visions you have. So the big four, again, I told you, I warned you, thoughts, physical sensations, urges, and emotions. These are automatic responses, right? We don't necessarily have control of why it's happening, right? We just tend to think negatively, right? We just might have a negative thought, I can't do this, I'm so bad, right? Physical sensation, you might get butterflies in your stomach, tension in your chest, you might get anxiety, headache. Urges, right? You might have the urge to not show up because you're so nervous. You might have the urge to yell at somebody. You might have the urge to, fight a teammate. It's all different types of negative urges that we kind of fall into. And then emotions, right? To understand, okay, I feel anxious, I feel angry, I feel upset, right? Really being able to start to recognize and notice these big four. This is where it starts. I ask clients clients and go, we're not going any further until you come back next week and you tell me 10 thoughts, physical sensations, urges, and emotions in that. Because they're not going to be ready to move on to the next step until they're very confident in recognizing these triggers. Because when they freak out at the end of the game, or they deal with emotions, I can't handle emotions, they don't realize all of that is coming from this root. Right? They're worried about the leaves, and not worried about the seed. Right? So that is an introduction to Big Four. So why does this matter? Well, if you look at this iceberg model here, right, on the surface is what we can see, what parents can see, coaches can see, the player can see. Right? These are their behaviors, their attitude, their body language, how they react. Right? Parents will find, oh, my kid always cries, or they always throw fits, or they just give up. Their body language is so negative. I'm like, okay, I know that's not great, and we don't want to see that. But if you tell them to stop crying, stop being emotional, stop having an attitude, not much is going to get done. Because it's really not about those emotions that you're seeing on the surface level. It's more about what's happening below that, right? What's really going on underneath the surface. And a lot of that is their inner critic, their doubts, their fears, their insecurities. If you start to take a deeper look at those and really address those, right? Then, when they make the mistake, instead of thinking like, oh my gosh, I never made this play. I'm so bad. All that training I'm doing is just wasting my time. Yeah, if you thought that and then made a mistake, you're probably going to show a negative behavior or attitude. But if you're thinking, all right, struggle is part of the process. I enjoy learning to get better. I can forgive myself. And then they make a mistake, you're probably not going to see anybody throw it away if they're thinking about themselves. Right? So this is the iceberg model. It's really where therapists, we go really deep under the surface to see where that's coming from. So why is awareness important? When you're aware of the Big Four, you can quickly gain control of your automatic thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and urges. So you guys can memorize these now. When you are aware of the Big Four, it makes you more confident, a better athlete. And if you're not aware of the Big Four, you'll often feel powerless and even out of control. So let's use a practical example here to kind of run through this and make it a little bit more practical. So we're going to use Sarah, who's a volleyball player. Sarah's been a consistent volleyball player for the majority of the season. She's the go-to person when the game is tight, and the setter needs someone confident to make the play. During important playoff games, Sarah begins to make a series of 3 mistakes, and now the game is tied. Sarah is shutting down and afraid that she will make another error and lose the game. Sarah is in serve-receive, and she knows the other team is going to target her on the serve. Sarah also knows that her setter wants to get her the ball again to make the play. Right, so pretty emotional, pretty nerve-wracking time for Sarah. Right? And we don't just look at Sarah, but let's look, what is the parent going through, right? So Sarah's parent wants to probably help in this moment. They probably feel helpless, they feel nervous for her, and want to shout out any helpful tip that they possibly can, right, to help their own anxieties, right? Or even feel the urge to walk out because they can't look, they can't watch, right? This parent probably is not aware of the Big Four, and it shows, and what might happen is they act like this a lot of games, and well, Sarah doesn't like that, right? It's like, you always make this face, you always tell me this, never works, stop telling me free, right? We probably hear this often, right? Parents very well intentioned, which is great, but understanding what the athlete's perspective of it is. So if we were, if I were to sit down with Sarah and say, okay, let's pause, let's press pause on this game right now. I would walk over and say, hey, what are your Big Four? We've been doing this awareness thing. Tell me, what are you aware of? She might think, okay, right now I'm thinking, I'm not good enough to be here, or like I'm never going to start again, especially if I mess this up. Okay, what are you feeling? I'd say, I'm pretty tense, and feel a little irritable, or feel anxiety in the head, stomach. All right, what's your urge right now? I just kind of want to shut down, or maybe just I'm already blaming myself, already preparing that I'm going to fail. And my urge is also to overthinking the next plays, because the more I can perfect it and think of it, well then that leads to the less negative things that will happen, right? We always have it. We can plan and prepare, then we're going to prevent a negative outcome. Not necessarily true. Okay, so this would be great. This would be really helpful for Sarah to be aware of this. So parents' reaction, if I were to say, okay, let's pause again and go to Sam's and say, Sarah's dad, mom, let's go, you're up too. What's your big four? Right? They might say, okay, well, my thought right now is she's probably going to lose her spot if she does this. And thinking that makes me feel pretty angry, pretty anxious, and I have the urge to walk out of the gym, the urge to shout out helpful advice, whether it's physical, technical, mental, the urge to blame the coach, and emotionally, I'm really beginning to worry and I'm feeling anxious as a parent because I really want them to do well. So again, it's really helpful to the parent to recognize their big four as well, because we both want Sarah and Sarah's parent to respond effectively, not react to the situation. So these big four, these urges, thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, again, they're automatic reactions, right? We can't be upset that they happen. It's okay. Like if you have doubts, if you have fear, if you have frustration, that's fine. But it doesn't have to stop there. We actually have the choice to do something about it. Right? We do have the choice. Right? So, okay, you're feeling frustrated, you're doubting yourself, you're sweating, you're fuming. Well, if you do nothing about it, nothing better is going to happen. You're just going to have no skills. You're just going to probably react, probably in a negative way, which is probably going to not lead to anything good either, right? But if you take those same fears, nerves, doubts, and you actually apply a skill to them, right? You actually remember to, okay, I need to kind of pause here, and I need to know how to respond in this situation. Well, that is a response, right? That's how you actually respond and give yourself the best chance to not only perform better, but overall just save your mental health. Because being hard on ourselves day in and day out because we're not achieving our own expectations, that's a whole other presentation, is going to wear on you over and over again, okay? So a quick skill that we want to provide for you guys, something that you can take away, we'll use like Sarah as an example, is CPR. And we use CPR. CPR is used to save someone's life, and although sports are not a matter of life and death, oftentimes they feel like they are. So the C, right, we try to make it simple for you as possible. So the C is checking in. Right? This is where we want Sarah, you guys, to check in on your big four. Right? Start. List things I currently say to myself in your emotions, your physical sensations, and your urges. So Sarah, some of the thoughts you might have are, or even you guys, maybe I'm not cut out for this. I'm not as good as so-and-so on a comparison. I might as well just quit. This is a waste of time, waste of money. I feel dumb. My body's always anxious. I do want to quit. Now, if we let Sarah just react in that moment, well, she might tell coach she's quitting, or she might walk away from this or tell her friends how much she hates it. But if Sarah remembers that, okay, it's probably a time when I need to pause here. Right? I need to kind of give it a little bit of time, observe those thoughts, right? Not necessarily to see them as true or false, but just observe them for what they are. When she's able to do that, she gives herself a much better chance to kind of reset, right? Which is looking at evidence of the contrary. You might ask her the next day, she might say, well, I do love the game, and each year I get better. I want to quit when I feel badly, but I know I would regret it. I should probably just go to bed, relax, it's been a long day. Tomorrow I will decide what to do. And 4 is refocus, right? So being able to just kind of refocus on really becoming a good responder, not a reactor. The better that they can do that, the better chance that they give themselves to be mentally resilient, mentally tough. So quick wrap up here is, what is the growth and resiliency model? It's knowing and understanding what your thoughts, emotions, physical sensation, and urges are, and act in response to a trigger. We want to observe these by taking a step back and allowing ourselves to actually see the big 4 without doing anything just yet. That's the observe step. Then we want to practice a responder's mentality rather than a reactor's mentality. So really get skilled at responding to your negative thoughts about this game, your negative emotions about how you played, right? Your negative urges about wanting to quit, wanting to train more, wanting to stop training, and all these negatives. And then, well, the second piece, what is the whole athlete? Again, so we talked about understanding the whole athlete, their intellect, emotions, body, creativity, community, vocation, finance, relationship. And then the skill, of course, CPR, right? Checking with the big four, pause, reset, and refocus. So if you think about something that you could probably implement into the CPR right now, whether it's something at work, something at school, something with sport, give it out, a shot to say, okay, how do I feel about this? What are my emotions towards it? What am I thinking? What are my urges? Apply that. Give it pause and think, how can I actually respond to this instead of react? Because reacting, again, is going to cause a lot of distress and negative reactions. That's it. Thank you, everyone.
Now we're going to bring up John Woods, our Libertyville Athletic Director.
I don't know if I need a mic.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't need a mic.
I may not.
Okay.
If you can, I'm going to keep my mask on. If you
Okay.
cannot hear me, raise your hand. Can you hear me in the back?
Yep.
Good. So I got to be honest with you. I'm feeling all of these things right now that Eric just covered. And as I'm sitting there, I'm noticing, trying to get in touch with my thoughts and my feelings and my urges. My legs bouncing, my hands are shaking, my breathing's heavy, and I'm fired up, ready to go. So, Coach, put me in. Just a little bit about me. I know you're probably like, what does this guy have to do? What does he know about mental health? And I was sitting there thinking, like, what do I know about mental health? So, I wanted to share just a little bit about my experience. So, in high school, I grew up in Champaign. I was a football, basketball, track guy. Grew up in an athletic family. I was the fourth of 5 kids. My dad played college basketball. It was sort of the expectation that we just did sports. That's what we did. And then I was fortunate enough to go to SIU Carbondale. I was a Saluki, played football down there. Had knee surgery after my junior year, and at that point decided that my future was not in football, and made the decision to focus on academics for once. And that was a good thing. Sorry. Did they get picked up on the YouTube? I hope it did. And it was honestly, it was really a tipping point for me, because at that point in my life, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I went to college to play football, and I decided I needed a little spending money, so I got into coaching little kids when I was down in Carbondale, and really developed a passion for working with kids, and decided at that point that this might be an avenue that I want to pursue. And so I did. Got certified to coach, graduated, moved back to Champaign, enrolled in grad school, and started coaching at Champaign High School. And there I spent 3 years while I was working through grad school, coaching girls basketball and girls track and field. And then I became the head boys track and field coach while I was still in grad school down there. And then I got hired at St. Joseph Ogden High School. Does anybody know where St. Joseph Ogden? All right, we got a couple. Good. I spent 2 years there, and it was just a fascinating 2 years for me, because I was surrounded by Hall of Fame coaches, great community, very supportive community. Actually reminds me so much of Libertyville. And so I had an opportunity to coach some sports there that I'd never coached. I coached volleyball for a year. Again, coached girls basketball, and then was able to coach some different positions in track and field while I was there. Went back to Champaign High School, where I started my coaching career. Taught there. I was an assistant boys basketball coach, head boys golf coach for 5 years. Coached basketball there for 12. In my 5th year at Champaign, I became the athletic director. So that's what I've basically done for the last 20 years. So I spent my last 16 in Champaign, still coached over that for about the first 6 or 8 years, and have really had the opportunity to not only work hands-on with a lot of different athletes in different sports, both genders, but also as an athletic director, working with coaches who are obviously on the front lines working with kids. And then I've got 2 kids of my, I shouldn't say my own, our own. My wife and I had 2 kids, and they were both athletes, multi-sport athletes. Our son was a cross-country swim and track kid, and our daughter did track and swimming as well. Both incredible students, just great. I'm a little biased, obviously, and I'm going to brag for a minute. But great kids, and it was just an awesome experience for me as a dad to be able to watch them do sports that I didn't do, except for track. I was primarily a thrower. They ran, so it was good to just be able to sit in the stands and cheer them on. As a dad, it was interesting to see the kids navigate their sports. As a coach, it's interesting to see kids navigate their sports. And when I hear in conversation, people will say, well, athletics is 70% mental, or 80% mental, or 90% mental. Has anybody ever heard that? A couple people? Good. And then I wonder, like, let me see your practice plan. How much time do we spend intentionally teaching the mental side of the game? Well, here's the deal. We have coaches on our staff that teach math, science, social studies, PE, English. They're experts in their field, and then they also coach. And so the assumption, and I remember this as a young coach, when I first started coaching, I was automatically the expert in my sport. Nutrition, rest, recovery, strength and conditioning, college recruiting, and academics. And so when we think about that, it's very difficult to make sure that we are providing for the whole child. And so how do we do that? We have to supplement, which is what we're doing now. So back to my kids, it was interesting. I have this unique perspective, not only as an athlete, as a coach, as an athletic director, but also as a dad. And so when I think about my kids and their experiences and where do they get this mental training from, oftentimes it started at home. Just by the interaction and the focus that my wife and I spent with our kids. And that was on making sure that they had fun and that they had joy in their heart. But joy in their heart, shameless plug, joy in their heart for what they do. Because I read somewhere that like 70% of all kids quit sport by the age of 13 because it's no longer fun. That's shame. Shame on us, the adults, for making sure that we're not providing a great experience. Fortunately for my kids, I got to watch them compete, and as a dad who was the supervisor for their coaches, sometimes it was awkward. I think for them, not for me. But it was fun to watch them compete and just go do what they love. Our daughter chose not to compete at the collegiate level. She focused on leadership and academics and is about to graduate from ISU this spring. She's student teaching at Rantoul, and hopefully will come up here and get a teaching position. Our son, he was fortunate enough down at Champaign. He was a state champ in the 50 freestyle. And he was a 14-time state qualifier. He was a 3-time All-American. He went to Michigan State, 14 times state or school record holder at MSU, and an Olympic qualifier in swimming. He was in Omaha last summer. Now, I share that part not to brag, but as I was thinking, what do I know about mental health? I think I've got 102 seasons. Now, you're thinking, John, you got to be tipping like maybe 150 years old to coach 102 seasons. Sometimes I feel like it. When I saw Riley walk in this morning, that's how I feel some mornings. My point is this: a lot of hands-on experience with the kids has helped us develop what we're doing with Wildcats Will. A lot of hands-on experience with some fantastic coaches has helped us develop what we're doing with Wildcats Will. A lot of time spent studying great coaches and great peak performance coaches has helped us develop what we're doing with Wildcats Will. And so when I asked earlier how much of the game is mental, and we say 70, 80, 90, but yet we spend 2 hours in the gym just shooting baskets, or out on the track just running in circles, or hitting the volleyball over the net, or throwing the ball down the lane, or rolling around on the mat, where do we spend time intentionally training the mental? Well, the reality is most of our coaches aren't trained to teach the mental. And so how do we tell a kid you got to be more mentally tough if we don't provide instruction? How do we tell a kid to focus if we don't provide strategy? How do we tell a kid to be a leader if we don't teach them? So, shameless plug down here every Friday. There's kind of a coincidence. I came on at 7:45 p.m. and we meet every Friday morning at 7:45 a.m. right here. and it's open to anybody. Not just seniors, not just juniors, not just freshmen, not just sophomores, but we believe that every child can benefit from what we're doing. So here's the foundation for what we teach our kids. So these are our program core values. If you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, a lot of times you'll see #program. If you look at some of our shirts, you'll see program on the back with our program core values. These were developed in the spring of 2018 through a collaborative effort with our coaches and our student athletes. I think we had over 600 kids respond, and we had about 75 to 80% of our coaches respond. And we spent 6 months identifying the core values. We didn't come up with an acronym and then try to fit words in. What we did was pick categories that really stood out from the feedback that we got from our kids. And the reason we came up with program is we asked a couple questions, like, who are we? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? Do we function as 92 teams, 31 sports, or one program? The answer at the time was somewhere between 31 sports and 92 teams. Meaning, how can we align what we're doing across settings? So if you have a kid that is in a fall sport, winter sport, and spring sport, take it a step further, if you have a parent who's in a fall sport, winter sport, spring sport, or has 2 kids here, and they're playing 6 different sports or more, the parent has to learn the handbook for the fall sport, the winter sport, the spring sport. The kid has to, and we're bouncing around. And so what we wanted was consistency, alignment amongst our programs, common language, and a common vision. And so this is what we share with our kids. Our program core values: passion, respect, 1, grit, reliability, accountability, and mindfulness. But we spend time teaching these to our kids. Not only what they mean, you can pull out the doggone Google and look up what they mean. But we talk about what they look like in action. And what it means to be a Wildcat and exhibit our program core values. What that looks like in the hallways, in the classroom, social setting, and in the athletic arena. And then these are our 10 pillars of peak performance. And these are the areas that we really focus on and dive deep into as we meet every Friday at 7:45 a.m. right here in the studio theater. And if you look at them, there's a lot of similarity between what Eric was talking about earlier and what we're teaching here at Libertyville. So you see a lot of common themes. Right now, we're really talking about teaching kids how to set goals. And so not only focusing on our 10 pillars, but diving deep into teaching kids strategies so that they can carry on in the hallways, in the classroom, in the social setting, and in the athletic arena. And so when we talk about goals, a lot of times, if you ask any team, well, what's your goal for the, well, we want to win state. Good, so does everybody else. What are you going to do about it? But we have to have an intention. Where do you want to go? It could be, I just want to make the team. Good. What are you going to do about it? It could be, we want to go to state. Great. What are you going to do when you get there? And what are the steps necessary to get there? And so what we want to do is set an intention, and then we want to talk about what are the commitments necessary to attain that goal. And that's a step that oftentimes gets overlooked. Where do you want to go? And what are you willing to commit to? And when we talk about commitments, there's a difference between commitments and feelings. And I'll give you an example. I am committed to a healthy lifestyle. And my wife makes sure I have no options. I try to keep up with her because she's amazing. We swim in the morning. And I'm telling you, when that alarm went off at 4:55 this morning, my bed was warm. It was comfortable, and I did not feel like getting out of bed. The wind was howling. It was a perfect morning to sleep in. And I had 2 choices, feelings or commitments. So I got up. And I went to the pool. I still didn't feel like getting in because the water felt cold. And I had two choices, feelings or commitment. So I jumped in. And it was amazing when I got in the water what happened to my feelings. All of a sudden, I felt like competing because I'm committed to the lifestyle that I said I want to live. And so we teach our kids the difference between feelings and commitments. And then when we get to 3, scheduling. It is very easy for the day to run us. So we talk about scheduling your AM routine and your PM routine because when you come here, it happens to you. You control your morning, you control your evening. And then we talk about these things. Does this control your evening, your morning, and every second in between? And so we are intentional about teaching how to schedule. And then how do we measure? We got to measure what we say we're doing. I tell my wife every morning when I get done, I set another world record today. She said, you set a world record every day. I said, yeah, I know. Because I know I'm the only one my age at that time of the morning that swam that fast, that length, on that day. It's got to be a record. That's my mindset. Set records every day. But then I measured. I use the Habit Share app. It's free. Shameless plug. It is free. And I set my habits. We teach our kids, if you want to use the Habit Share app, great. You don't have to. If you want to use a spreadsheet, that's great. Everybody's got them on their phone. But we got to measure what we've scheduled that we said we're committed to meet our goals. And then we assess. And here's the importance of this piece. If I say I want to be a state champ, but I'm living state chump behaviors in my daily, then something needs to change. Either I need to say I'm going to be a state chump, or I need to start living like a state champ. Because we have to have alignment. Go back to 92 sports, 31 teams, 1 program. Do we have alignment? Is what I say aligned with what I do? So a question was, well, what do you do with your coaches? The same thing. So when we talk about setting goals, we do the same thing. And the feedback that we get from you in our student-athlete surveys, we have real conversations about how can we take that feedback and grow. And we take that feedback not only from student-athletes, but from parents, and we set goals. How can we grow and get better to provide a world-class experience for our kids every single year? How many of you have heard this phrase? Trust the process. Anybody? You probably see it on shirts, right? Joe Madden, after the Cubs made it to the playoffs finally, they beat the Cardinals, and afterwards he said 2 things, culture and process. And then shirts came out, trust the process. Well, what does it mean? Tell me about your process. I don't know. So if someone were to ask you, what is your process, could you articulate? And then does the process change depending on who we play? And so go back to alignment and consistency. Who we are is who we are. I don't care if we're playing Steelers. No disrespect to Steelers. I love the Patriots. I was just down there today. And then I won't name another school because I don't want to disrespect anybody, but does it depend on who we play? Or the weather? Or who's officiating the game? Or the temperature of the water that we play in or swim in? Or the oil patterns of the lane? Or is our identity our identity? And then do we measure it? And then we talk a ton about this. Recognized behavior, rewarded behavior is repeated behavior. Reward the process, you get more process. When you get more process, you get more positive outcomes. And then do we assess? Do we reflect regularly? So, what is our process here at Libertyville? I talked to you about Wildcats with, and this here is how we align what we do. So we have what's called an MVP process, our mission, our vision, and our principles. Remember, do we live out of principle commitment or based on feelings? The performance pathway is our process, our Wildcats hierarchy of needs. How many of you have heard of Maslow? We got the Wildcats. And then here we've got our best practices or our behaviors. Our student survey is how we measure. And then our head coach reflection is also how we reflect and refocus. And then I also have our coaches do a survey on me to help me grow and get better. Because if I'm not growing and getting better, how are the coaches growing and getting better? How are the kids growing and getting better? And then if we reverse engineer that, if we expect our student athletes to grow and get better, bigger, faster, stronger, and we're not getting better as the leaders, I don't care how many All-Americans we have on our team, if our staff isn't getting any better, we include. And EOS, that's our end of season needs. So that is our process. So when we talk about trust the process, there it is. And it starts with why. Why do you coach? Why do you compete? Why am I an athletic director? And it's interesting when you ask this question. I believe a why has to have a to and a so. A to and a so. T-O and an S-O. And so when somebody asks me my why, it is to inspire, influence, educate, and empower others to become the best that they are capable of becoming so that they can do the same for those they lead. A to and a so. So when you have a conversation or when you're reflecting, if you're a parent or if you're a student athlete, why do you do what you do? Think about it. You see, people don't burn out because of the hours, the time spent. They burn out because they forget their why. And I can tell you over the last 2.5 years, I have had to get in touch with my why. Why do you do it? I don't know. No, that's and then I come back to my why, and it helps me to become centered and get back to why I do what I do and get out of bed at 4:55. So I mentioned the performance pathway. This is, and our coaches have seen this a lot. And they hear me talk about leadership drives culture, culture drives behaviors, behaviors drive results. And then if you flip that thing, what are the desired results? What are the behaviors we need to get to where we want to go? What's the culture we need to get the behaviors that we want? And what is the leadership necessary to drive the culture to get the behaviors and attain the results we desire? So this thing can really go both ways. And I'll give you an example. Think about a team. I use basketball. My sophomore year, we were 0-22. Yes, we played 22 games and did win. Ironically, in football that year, we were 0-9. I think we might have been the only team in the world in football and basketball that didn't win a game. My sophomore year was an awful experience, but it taught me a lot. Grit and resilience. So if you got 0-9 or 0-22, do you even need to guess what the behaviors were like? Because I can tell you, we had 0-9 and 0-22 behaviors. We had 0-9, 0-22 culture. And our leadership was probably somewhere along those same lines. So when we talk about leadership, how am I doing? Am I going to get this up?
Pretty soon the Oscar music's coming up.
Okay.
I'm
going to be real quick. We'll get through this, we'll go.
You're good.
Leaders do two things. One, they get results. Two, they build trust. Notice at the foundation here, trust. How do we build trust? We have to build connection with the kids, with our staff. We have to do what we say, character, competence, we have to know what we're talking about. You have to build trust before you can get results. When we talk about our culture, I showed you, we talked about our MVP process, our mission, our vision, our principles, and our Wildcat hierarchy, which I'll finish with. And then over here, the behaviors, I know Eric touched on it. We talked about R, the response. Our equation is simple. E plus R equals O. The event plus the response equals the outcome. We have no control over the event. We do control our response. Our response will influence the outcome. So if the referee makes a bad call, which they always do, we shouldn't be surprised. How do we respond? That determines the outcome. We talk about our above-the-line R, our above-the-line response, our above-the-line behaviors, and we have our student athletes help us establish those standards. No BCD, no blaming, no complaining, no defending. We take extreme ownership. If anybody's ever watched Jocko, if you want to look up a quick 2-minute, 30-second YouTube video, type in Jocko, Jocko. Good. That's it. Best 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the next hour and a half of your life, probably. And that's why we've got good down there. Whatever happens, good. Opportunity for us to grow. So I talked about the MVP process. Our mission, we focus on the individual development of every child, in a nutshell. I can say it. Our mission is to focus on the individual development of every child. We've got our own little hierarchy of needs. We believe at the foundation before we can ever achieve what we desire to achieve. We have to have a strong foundation built on relationships, build trust, engagement, leadership, development, and culture cultivation. The foundation. In the middle there, physical and mental strength and conditioning, nutrition, rest, and recovery. Unless these two at the bottom in the middle of our pyramid, once those are strong, we know that we'll be able to do the things that we want to do in the athletic arena. And then when we talk about our vision, we want to be recognized for how we do, not what we do. See, we don't talk about rings and ribbons and trophies and plaques and medals, because we believe those are a byproduct of the individual development of each child that we have here at high school. When you have a strong foundation, the outcome is going to be the outcome. The results will be the results when you have strong leadership, strong culture, and strong behaviors. And then there's our core principles again. And here's what we do with our staff. How do we grow together? Seasonal all-staff meetings, regular head coach weekly meetings, bi-weekly lunch and learn with Brian Kane. Brian Kane is a peak performance coach that works with professional athletes, collegiate athletes, and now with Libertyville High School. He's a friend of mine that I met a couple years ago, and he's been a tremendous influence on our staff here. And we also have bi-weekly coaches club. We do books every month, which has been fantastic, not only for our coaches, but for me and my growth. And we have some outstanding conversations every other Tuesday morning at 7:15. And these are three of our most recent books that we've done. Pete Carroll, Win Forever, Trevor Moad, It Takes What It Takes, and Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect. Jackie?
All right, John, that was awesome.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm going to have Riley Lees and Harrison Bach join me up here. Come on up. Rob, are you okay to hit the mic?
Yeah. You good? Good.
Yeah, there we go. All right, I'll have you come stand with Riley. Yeah, you guys are going to actually share the mic.
Sweet.
Okay, so Riley, go ahead.
I'll start and introduce myself. I am Riley Lees. I graduated here in 2016. I played football and baseball, then went on to Northwestern and played football there. Graduated in 2020. This past year, I got signed by the Bengals and then cut by the Bengals. So since then, I've been coaching football and helping out with baseball. So I'm doing that while I'm in grad school to get my teaching certificate and trying to continue to pursue football at the same time. So that's me.
Hey guys, I'm Harrison. I'm a 2017 LHS grad. Played basketball as a team captain here. My story is a little different from Riley's. I was poised to have a pretty good breakout season senior year. Did a lot of training, a lot of hard work, and inevitably just fell up short. So a lot of physical and mental disappointment and feeling unsettled heading into college. So I started to explore, where did I go wrong? And got quickly involved in how to train smarter and eventually found USC Performance Science. And that program teaches some of the tools and techniques pulled from some of the world's greatest performers. We talk to Navy SEALs, trauma surgeons, serial entrepreneurs, Olympic level athletes, learning some of the common threads that make them tick and some of the things that work for them. So learned a lot about the competencies that it takes for high performance, and my recent work with a company called Regenerate taught me more about some of the capacity piece of performance, which is basically the foundational energy necessary to deploy those skills and talents. Competency without capacity is nothing, and vice versa. And that was something that I really struggled to understand in high school. So I've started to take what I've learned and sort of utilize that in a coaching career that I've just started about 6 months into my certification process with the Human Potential Institute. Starting to take on young adult clients, looking to maximize their performance in any walk of life, health performance, athletics, beyond. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so I had the pleasure of meeting both these guys. Riley and I went to Austin's, and so we got to just talk about his life, things he's been through. Harrison and I, we got to talk over the phone for a while, and I was so intrigued by both of these guys. So I'm going to ask them each a couple of questions, and then at the end here tonight, I am going to pull up everybody. So parents, athletes, you guys, please feel free to ask anybody questions, okay? All right, so when I met with Riley, I said, you know, I was getting to know him, and I thought, oh my gosh, you have like a, wow, you go, Riley. That's kind of what my thoughts were. But then as I was talking to him, I was like, so have you ever been hurt? And he looked at me, and I could not believe the list of injuries that this guy's had. So my question for Riley, and I want you to share, because I do know a specific someone out here right now who is overcoming injury. How do you do it? What does it take to get over that injury and get back into the game?
Yeah, that was, I'm not going to go through the list. But, I'll stick with two specific ones that were the longest it took me to get back. Senior year of high school, tore my shoulder, finished the year, got surgery, went right to college, tore my other shoulder, and I was back for like a month maybe. So I was really playing again for a month, and I was out again. So really I was out for a whole year, basically. It was a whole 6 months to get back. And that was going, next thing I could play was spring ball. I was playing a new position, playing in the Big Ten, so it was I'm not only playing a new position, I'm also playing a new position with people who are 22 years old and that's close to the best of what they do. So for me, it was like a lot of I just had to trust. Like I wanted to get hit. Like I wanted someone to hit my shoulder. So I was like, because before it was like every time I did this, my arm was slipping. It was a mess. And I just wanted to get hit just to know that I was good. And once that happened, it was like smooth sailing, which is easier said than done, I know. And it's hard for me to put into words. But I had the same thing. Sophomore year, I had a hamstring and spring ball. Get back, start running again, re-strain. Get back, re-strain. So I just keep tearing my hamstring again and again. And it got to the point where camp was in like 1 month. So I'm like, I'm not confident in the body. I'm not confident in me running a route to be every time like, oh, I'm good again. I can go. But after 2 times of feeling good, I pop my hamstring. So then I go into camp. And that whole year, quite honestly, I was playing to survive. Which was different than my shoulder, because as my shoulder gets surgically fixed and it's good for my hamstring, but it's torn, there's scar tissue, and it's not 100%. And I remember vividly early on in the year, I was starting and a guy broke off a long run, first play of the game. I'm playing receiver, I have to go block. And I started to sprint to go chase him down, and it's early and you think you can warm up somehow. I wasn't. So I'm running and I realized like my hamstring's about to go, so I had to like pull up. So like the whole year I'm thinking like I'm playing while thinking not to tear my hamstring, and that was probably the first half of the year, and I played so much worse than I did at the end of the year when I told myself finally like I can trust this. So that was like the biggest thing where I noticed thinking about my injury and playing was the worst thing I could do, because I was playing slow, which is probably going to make me more likely to get hurt. someone hurt someone else. Like I pull up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to step in there, and someone rolls up on me because I haven't finished doing something. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is just trusting it and just going. Like I've been through both where I've gotten fixed and it was good, and I've had one where I was hurt and kept getting hurt again and again. But it's just one of those things, like the control aspect. Like do what you need to do rehab wise, and when they tell you you're good, trust it. If you don't feel good, communicate that. But at the same time, there's the aspect of you need to. One, there's the side that you need to put it outside of it. Like you need to do rehab to get yourself fixed. But at the other end, it's you just got to trust it and just play. Because if you play while thinking about it, you're gonna get hurt somewhere else. So I know it's kind of hard to put into words like, oh yeah, just go, like play. I know you just got ACL surgery, but just go run. But like, it's because I get it, because it's hard to like, do I trust this again? And I think a good thing to do is to put yourself in game-like situations before you get into the game. Like whether that be in practice, like go full out in practice, and even when the game comes, you're not going to think about it. But that's really all I can do.
And Riley, keep that microphone, because I'm going to ask you another question. You were sharing, you played at obviously Northwestern, so social media is involved. How do you deal with critics or people saying things to you online? And who's going to tell you he's not online, which is amazing. But go ahead. Oh no, he's online. He's on Instagram.
Someone just the other day. I'll give you an example of what it's like. Is when you play on like national TV and you have fans, people get mad. Now that there's sports betting, people get more mad. So, someone told me the other day randomly, because something happened with the Bengals and they thought I was still on the Bengals, and so I got cut. They said, enjoy selling insurance. I was like, in my DMs, and I was like, first of all, I'm not going to sell insurance, I'm going to teach you, thank you. Second of all, I was like, what? Like, people that go out of their way, and they're like, they took thought to find me, find my name, message me that, and think like, so like you need to like I've always thought this way, but it was put into words to me today from my trainer. It's take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. And what's that? It's pretty good. Basically, do everything you need to do, but like in the grand scheme, my mindset with people that do that stuff is like, okay, he's watching me, my husband. Like he's at home. Cares. Those people don't matter. Social media is really dumb in a lot of ways. But that stuff, like, you're gonna see it, like it's out there. But it's one of those things that you just have to keep the perspective of, I'm the one doing it. They wouldn't want to be doing what I'm doing. Like they want to, but they couldn't. And you need to keep that in perspective. Like the people that are talking bad about you, and people that are talking bad about you directly, they have probably worse issues going on if that's what they're doing. So just don't let that ever get to you in any way. They have no effect on how you're doing. You're the one doing it, and all that matters is what you do. So, yeah.
Okay, Harrison's up. All right, next question for you. So when Harrison and I talked over the phone, his story was awesome. So being a senior here, he was the captain of the basketball team. Okay, he was not feeling like he was contributing enough on the team. And so I want you to share your story about that, because I know that can resonate a lot with people that are watching online. And to our audience here, is walk us through that, because I thought that was a fascinating story you shared, and it brought it to where you are today.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, I put in a lot of work to really have a good season my senior year. Lots of training, dieting, hours and hours of work over the summer and fall. If you guys watch TV, you've seen Drew Peterson, USC, killing it on the basketball court. I was working out with him. And basically, after the first few games, I started to just break down. Dealt with back spasms for the rest of the season. My knees gave out. That started to trickle into some, mental health issues with confidence as well. And when I was on the court, it was like with each game, I'm like, dang, just feel like these kids are running circles around me. I have no idea what's going on. I've been doing everything right. And it took getting to school, to USC, to start to dive into that research myself, to first gain the awareness, and Eric and Simply Be have been talking about awareness of, well, what are the things that I'm doing wrong? What are all the things that I can control? And started to get into the concept of recovery. Moved from working out 7 days a week to working out 3 days a week. Simple adjustments like that work wonders. My injuries healed. I was dunking the basketball again. Oftentimes, you don't know what you don't know. And that's why it's great that we have information and resources like we've had tonight. Take it to heart, because this is the stuff that when I was your age, I really put to the side and ignored. And when I got to school and realized, these are what the world's top performers are doing. It's something I wish I knew back then, and really helped me reform my identity after a disappointing basketball season and high school coming to a close.
Okay, I know there's a couple of people out there too that wanted to hear what is a good routine for a teenage athlete? What is a good routine to have?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. It really is. With teenagers, obviously social media is a big thing. You're not only training yourself to compare yourself to others, you're training your attention span to get shorter and shorter the more time you spend on social media. And it's a sad fact because it's fun and you get to connect with people, you really do. But, I made the decision to cut out social media about 3 years ago because of those reasons. So I would say set some boundaries around social media, especially right when you wake up and right before you go to bed. Developing that healthy mind space. Give yourself 30 minutes to an hour before you check your phone, and an hour before bed, just put it down, Say your goodnights, do your scrolling, put it down, read a book or something. I don't know, yeah. There's a lot to be said about routine and habits. I would say do what works for you. Everyone is different, and you're going to want to look for ways to calm your mind and come into focus and presence. That's sort of a common thread that you get with social media and other just issues of connectedness and social pressures. If you can just start to train your mind to become aware of the things, those 4 pieces, those big pieces pulling you out of the present moment, become aware of those things, and then make the decision to refocus. Every time you do that, you're strengthening your attention muscle. It's going to help you on the court, the field, in the water, whatever your sport is. It really is.
Okay, I have one last question for both of them, then we're going to pull everyone back up here and open it up to questions out in the audience. This is a good one, both of you, okay? This is a good one, parents. How do you guys think, looking back, how would you want your parents to talk to you before a game and after a game?
I'm going to try not to make eye contact with my mom. Down in the front corner. No, I think my parents were great. Honestly, in my experience, there was a lot of clashing between what the coaches would say and what parents would say. I would say you've got to pick your lane, stay in it as both a player and a parent. Trust that your coaches are doing a good job and they're getting trained really well to say what they need to say. And if they're not, that's another story. After games, I don't really like to hear anything after games. Wins or losses. Personally, I had a tough time celebrating the wins and a tough time thinking and sort of pouting about the losses. So, giving your kids some space, just some pause, some reflection time, sort of to garner that response mode versus that reactivity mode we were talking about, and then engaging in some conversation, that could be really beneficial, I think.
I agree with everything you said. I would also add, not adding pressure. So it'd be like before a game, like don't be like, I have the, hi mom, sorry. No, like big game tonight, huh? Like state championship. Thanks for pointing it out. That was pretty great. Thanks. It's like little things like good luck, proud of you, things like that. There's, at least for me, I put enough pressure on myself. There's no need for my parents or brothers to put more pressure. As much as you can. Obviously, you care a lot. So, but everything he said. So.
All right, anything else you guys want to share before we bring everyone else down? All right. Okay, any questions up here? I know there's got to be one. I have the mic, you guys are good. Questions? Okay, we got
Just
one.
wondering if you could talk about the value of sleep.
Oh, it's
Do
still.
you want to grab? There you go. If you guys want to get use that, I don't know.
Your mother would like to hear you talk about the value of sleep.
Oh, me?
Or,
Is it on?
Yeah.
You really can't discount the importance of sleep, and you hear it all the time, and you think whatever, like, yeah, I've heard it, I know how to sleep. I went to a summit in Silicon Valley. It's called the Silicon Valley Health and Performance Summit. It was a collection of the biggest leaders in the cross-section of health tech and performance, and the only thing they could agree on was sleep. When you don't sleep, quality and quantity, you're less physically, mentally, and emotionally equipped to do your job during your sport and just as a human being. It really does trickle down. You could give days of conversation on some of the specific benefits of sleep, but the research and what everyone preaches really does speak for itself. Quantity, quality, all that good stuff you hear, consistency, you just can't discount it. It's really important.